not 7 steaks, not 7 steaks and everything else.
Correct. But everything that we should do should be, for for the Rabban Shalom that we're supposed to that we're eating in order to. There's a tefillah that was said. There's a tefillah that some said before the Mishabura brings it before they eat, which says I forgot what it was. That right now I'm eating in order to keep my body going, and that's it. And that's why I'm putting this food into the mouth. Right? And if you don't like that food, so then you won't put it into the mouth. Right? Anyways, okay. But that's it's not an easy thing. I mean, if we do everything with l'shem shamayim, then we wouldn't be so hard to diet. I would think. But anyway, okay, so now to tonight's stuff. So we went through the Amud Beis, but since it's a major sugya.
So Yaakov, if you know it like that, it's one way to guarantee not having company Shabbos or Yom Tov like that.
That's a bonus.
That's what you want,
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah, I'm not. Everything in moderation. That's what it goes. So that segues into us right here. So we said yesterday we had the Machlokes of the 3 women that are allowed to use birth control, as we call it nowadays, right? So a girl less than 12, which Gemara really ended up saying less than 11, and a woman who's pregnant, and a nursing mother. So it was a Machlokes Rameir and the Chachamim. Rameir said they could use birth control. Chachamim say no, they should Shomer B'Sayim Hashem. So one of the more famous Shomer B'Sayim Hashems out there is Ramesh's tshuva about smoking cigarettes. The tshuva Ramesh says you're allowed to smoke. He quotes because Shomer B'Sayim Hashem, even though they say, maybe it's not so healthy, but Shomer B'Sayim Hashem, which some say nowadays Ramesh would say that maybe it does not apply anymore. Because now already we have so many studies how unhealthy it is. So maybe that's not even called Shomer B'Sayim Hashem. Normally when we say Shomer B'Sayim Hashem is that you're doing the norm, and even if there's a possibility of something dangerous happening, but if you're doing the norm, Shomer B'Sayim Hashem. Right? Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing is there's 2 machlokes Rashi Tosfos here with what does when it says that the 3 women can use. So, the first thing is, does it mean they can use birth control according to the mayor, or they have to use birth control?
They have to.
It's a machlokes. Rashi says can, right?
What do you mean? It's a sakana.
Right. So, but it's a suffix sakana. It's a suffix.
So suffix sakana, you have to.
No, so it's not. There's a chance of sakana, but it's not anything out of the norm. So
Machal Shabbos is suffix sakana, no?
Yes, but that's when there's mamash sakana.
I mean, the art scroll is teaching it may. They may use it.
Because they go with, I think art scroll normally goes with Rashi's teach. So Rashi says
the Briskers would probably disagree with this Rashi. What do you mean? The Briskers are very makbid on what's it called? On suffix sakonis. Even there are stories you said over B'Shem, Chaim, and everything else that even on a shiloh possibility that there's some type of danger. That's not maybe. That's not. There's no body at all. There's stories that said there were mamish suffix.
Right. So
that
now
wouldn't seem with this Gemara at all.
Right. So here it's a little bit different. Yeah. So it's a little bit different because here there's no. It's not like if you don't take this medicine you're in a suffix. Right. There's a possibility that such and such may happen. I mean, it's very removed. It's very removed whether this thing is going to happen or not. I'm saying it's different than.
But pregnancy under 12 is pregnancy in general is a huge suffix. Is a huge
so that's
but so what does that mean? A pregnancy under 12 would be a may?
Yes, because we look. Pregnancy is something natural. Hashem put the body into sakana, and the nature.
The Gemara says
to survive it.
I'm sorry, it's bezim sakana pregnancy. Right? That's one of the three things women should be careful with.
Okay, but Akiva said, then why does any woman ever get pregnant?
But my point is that
So,
you're
okay,
already
so
starting
obviously
with
that's not the-
you're already starting with a sakana, and now you're talking about an 11-year-old having such a sakana. How's that a me? It's extremely schwer.
It's not. It's because it's the regular halach yelech of life.
But the Gemara says it's better a sakana for a child.
It's not. The Gemara is saying that it's a suffix of a sakana, and even then, it's the norm is to survive. Pregnancy survives anyway. So that's a different kasha. The Mefarshim go back and forth on that. What Rashi means exactly, right? So that's one. That's one machlokes, and the other machlokes is: does this mean before or after? Right? Does that mean before or after? Meaning, where is this moich being used? Right? Is it being used before the actual relations or after? Right? So Rashi seems to say that you're doing it before. And the Rabbeinu Tam says before is assur. That's like Zera Levatala. That's Zera Levatala. Right?
Where's that Rashi? Which Rashi?
Wait a minute.
Rashi,
Wait a minute.
what's it? Yeah.
She did. He didn't. She did
Mashamshis
it.
b'mayich, third thin line down, Binyamin. What are you saying, Zev?
She put in the mic.
Correct. Yes, she put in the mic. So then that's another din in Taisus. Whether a woman is chayiv has a chayiv of zera levatola or is only a man's thing. Right? So that's a different.
She's preventing, not him.
Correct. So that's a different machlokes whether there's an issur on her. Maybe
So what
she's
did he
over
do
the
levatala? What did he do levatala?
He
He didn't do it. She did it.
No. So it's Shilas, does she have a chiyuv of zera levatola also?
What the chiyuv is on him, not on her.
No, she also has. That way, that's the shaila, whether she also has. Right? But anyways, Taisus says it's assur before. This is only afterwards that it's mutter. Okay? So this can make a big difference in how we understand the practical ramifications of all this. Right? And then the main point to understand is where is it in the Taisus? Where is it now? I can't find it.
Right at the end of Taisus.
So what? No, that's with the lady. That's with the lady.
What, the chayev rather than mutter?
No. Now I'm on to the next thing. So that's another machlokes. But the main point, the main practical point that causes so much confusion with the birth control, with using birth control in the Welt, is they don't understand. Is it blocking or is it not blocking the zera? Is this moich blocking or not? So what almost all poskim agree to is that nowadays what we call a diaphragm is so way up far inside that it's not interfering with the zera directly. Like this mamish blocked the zera from going where it's supposed to go. Basically, what Taisus says is that derech tashmish is mutter. As long as everything works naturally, it's okay. Otherwise, how can a husband ever be together with a wife who's pregnant? How can a husband be together with a wife who's postmenopause? Right? Or with
there's a dinner by now.
I know, but it's zera levatala.
It's all about Tala. Doesn't mean
Sure, it's levatala. Not doing anything.
You want to say,
Oh,
I
it's
say the
assur doichelois, one says doichelois.
Oh, so what you say? You want to say essay doichelos? Is it good? Well, what happens if you already? Let's say you makayim your mitzvahs aina already. Right? Let's say once a week, twice a week, whatever the cheshbonos are. Right now you got, and so now maybe you don't have the mitzvahs. Say you're going to say
Based
yes.
On our chasadikim, you shouldn't. That's it.
That's very good. Right? That's very good. But the bottom line is derech tashmish. As long as everything is working natural, that's not a problem. Okay, that's why all these shilas, when it comes to birth control pills and the IUD, which is something that goes inside the uterus, almost I think pretty much it's kol deis that there's no zera levatala issues, because what you're doing is you're messing with the brain to fool the body that it's pregnant. Everything is working natural. Everything's working natural. It's no different than a woman who's pregnant. You're just messing with the brain that tells her body not to get pregnant. Okay, that's not zera levatala issue, right? On the other, so that's one end that makes things a lot more mutter, which is why that Tatum for birth control are much easier to come by nowadays. But on the other end is the condom, right? On the other end is the condom. Now the shaila is the condom is blocking. It's not working derech tashmisha because there's something there that's blocking. So they do say b'shem Reb Chaim Oizer that he mattered it. It's not so pashut that he mattered it, but they quote Ramosha Feinstein quotes Reb Chaim Oizer that he mattered it.
He
Okay?
matted on a
Using a condom. B'makom sakana.
What's Makam Sakana?
Oh, so what's makom? It's a sakana for her to get pregnant, right? I'll tell you where it's negay. It can be negay.
It's not a financial sakana.
No, not a financial sakana. I'll tell you the situations that I've dealt with that I've gotten heterim not from me. Okay, for these things is one is if loyalenu, nobody should know that sometimes certain types of chemotherapies can go from the patient, can be shared through bodily fluids. So therefore there cannot be any sharing of bodily fluids. So then that's one thing. If somebody gets pricked with a needle from an AIDS patient, they go on a heavy duty medication. So that could also be. And then somebody today asked me that they have no other way. No birth controls work for them, and they're going to go crazy if they have a baby, et cetera, et cetera. So again, you ask the right rabbis, and you might get a heter for a condom, even though it's very, very, very shver. Right? It's very shver. But it's all based on the taisus here that it has to go derech tashmish. That it's 6 lines down in the taisus. It's the ein derech tashmish v'kach. Right? Right? When you put a mic there and you block, it's like the zera is going on eitzim and avonim. Masha'en came, as long as everything else is working natural, so then it's not a problem.
What
Right?
about the mental state of a lady?
Yes, and Ramosha has a different tshuva that mental issues can be already a sakon. So yeah. So anyway, so that's that this is the sugya right here. There's a little bit more later on in Yevamos, and then this some of it is in Hilchos Nida.
I'm just curious. I've always heard about the mental state of a woman. What about the mental state of a man? Does that ever come into play when it comes to an actual psak?
Very rarely, but depending on the situation, but not usually. It's more the mental state of the woman.
And does mental state include anxiety? Because that
Anxiety. Anxiety is
someone who has anxiety of having a kid, then they can use the condoms essentially.
No. We're not. No. I personally have never given a heter for a condom. I'm not roy lakach, but there might be. You might find some. Yeah. So that's. Whatever, that's you have to ask, but that's the sugi is all totally in that line in Taisus that it has to be derech tashmish.
See, Yaakov.
Yeah.
How does the next Gemara about the next shematasa over a sandal? Well, nowadays you see cases where people could give birth a second time and have 2 different children come out at different points.
Yeah, but I don't think that's twins though. That's within a short while of each other.
Not twins, separate pregnancies at the same time.
I'm saying, but the births happen within a short time of each other. No,
they could be. You could give birth 6 weeks later. There are mama's stories in the news where people give birth 6 weeks later after they gave birth.
Separate
embryos.
National Enquirer or the National Enquirer?
No, there's a story I saw recently. Regular
How common is that?
It doesn't matter. The Gemara says you're going to make the
Rava say, Stokes, you just went shopping and stopped in the shop and you got stuck on the line.
I'm just saying these are scientific stories. You have to know how to be reconciled this with the Gemara.
I hear. And you do have to, but that brings to a good point, Taka. Like that, some of the things with birth control is like so. Back then, they didn't for the 2 years. Bottom line is a woman nursed for 2 years, right? Because one of the ladies that can use the birth control is a woman who's nursing because we don't want her to get pregnant. Right, but the bottom line is that if they nurse fully, they will not get pregnant. nowadays the Matthias has changed, so that also makes everything a little cuckoo. Okay, enough of that. Let's go right. Yeah, so on Yud Gimel Amud Aleph by five lines down from the top. Ketzer Patur started saying. Yeah, Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. Yeah, so this is our last harav.
Two dots.
Two dots. 5 lines down. This is our last harav of the tzaros, and then we get into easier gemaras. Anyway, so Ketzer Patur started saying. So how do they patur the tzaros? Right. So what do we say again? If somebody's married, using the simple example, 2 brothers are married to 2 sisters, and then one of them dies. So now the brother has to be miyavim his 2 isurim. It's his wife's sister, and it's his brother's wife. So Amela is 2 isurim, so they're patur, and the tzara is also patur. The tzara is the co-wife, even though the co-wife is not assur at all, right? But she piggybacks on the ervah. So minani mili, how do you know? Some Rav Yudah, Damar Kral, litzrar. It says litzrar. HaTorah rips the tzara's habits. So the Torah does a lot of different. Means it's a lot of different tzaros. So and male, a lot of co-wives will assur. Meaning, and then even if another brother comes and marries the wife, and then he dies, and then there's another, even as long as there's a tzara, however long the train takes you, that's anybody that had a connection to an ervah is going to be patur. Ravashi Yamar Svara, it's a svara. Tzara my time asira. Why is it also to do yibum to a tzara to b'makim ervah? Kaima, because she was a wife when there was another wife that was Isser ervah. So tzara nami b'makim ervah kaima. So the tzara of a tzara, meaning the co-wife of a co-wife, is also b'makim ervah. So as long as there's some sort of connection with one of the wives, even if the original wife was a tzara, now it's way further down the road because one brother married and then another brother, so it doesn't make a difference. Then it's all assur. Fine. So Ketza, and then the next case in the Mishnah is if they got divorced, though, right? Meaning again, using the case of 2 brothers marrying 2 sisters. So if one of the brothers, the brother that died, got divorced from the sister before he obviously got divorced before he died, right? But he was married, then he got divorced, and then he died, right? And then, so now there's the tzara involved. So then we say, no, the tzara is going to need yibum, because since he got divorced from the ervah before he died, so therefore there was no connection of an ervah there. So the Gemara is now going to discuss, well, at what point did he marry her? Right? So let's see. Does that mean even if he got married and then he got divorced? Meaning, was there a time in these marriages when the 2 brothers married the 2 sisters that the 2 brothers were married to the 2 sisters, meaning, or did did brother A divorce his wife before brother B married his sister? Right, so the pashas of the Gemara is thinking is that, okay, it makes sense that the tzara is going to need yibum if brother A divorced his wife before brother B married his sister-in-law. But if they were both married at the same time to the sisters, so then there's an ervah there that can never be removed, even though they got divorced. So that's what the Gemara says. And even if he got married to the second sister and then they got divorced, if there's 3 brothers, and 2 brothers married 2 sisters, and one married, again, not a guy, one married a third woman, right, not related, and one of the brothers who married the sisters divorced his wife and then died. So and Meis Nachris, and the one who married the Nachris died. The Kansa Megarish, and the one who divorced the sister did yibum, and then Umeis, and then he died. So we and his that's what we said, that if they died or they got divorced, the tzara is mutter. Why? Because again, time of the girish v'achakakonas. That's only because first the divorce happened and then he got married, right? Aval konas v'achakak girish. But if the third brother got married before the divorce, then they would never, then it would not work, because at one point their sisters and brothers were married to each other, and therefore there's ervah. So that's what the Gemara thinks now. Meaning,
Does
so
this
again,
work according,
go ahead.
does
Yeah.
this work according to Rav Yehuda from 2 minutes ago, or just according to Rav Ashi? According to Rav Yehuda, that it's a drasha from Litzroyer. Right now, there's no Litzroyer.
Well, that's going to be.
Litzroyer is written by Yibum.
Yeah, so we'll see that in 2 minutes. We'll see that in a minute. We'll see, because it's totally when it happens. Right? So let's see. So Amar Rav Yirmiyah, Tavra, right? It's Tavra means literally from the word broken, but or it can mean in Rashi says it's a stira. Tavra, it's a stira. So the Gemara answers, so he's saying Misha Shanazu, La Shanazu. Whichever one learned this one, didn't learn this one. Right? Meaning it's a machlokes, but Hai Tana Savar Misa, I'm not really machlokes, it's two different prices. Hai Tana Savar Misa Mapelas. This Tana holds that Misa is what makes them go, literally Mapelas means to fall to yibum. The Misa is what makes them fall, meaning at the time of Misa, were there two sisters that needed yibum or not? Right? I mean one sister, but then there's a brother-in-law that's meaning, was there ervah at the time of death? If there was no ervah at the time of death, which there wasn't here because he got divorced, so then there's no yibum, and then it's no problem. But and this Tana holds that it's only when they get married. That's when they get married, was there an Isser ervah? In which case they're gonna have to get divorced before the second brother gets married, using that example. Okay, so Rava Amar Lo'ilam Chatano, it's not two different Tanoim, it's really one Tana. What it is I'll teach you a case where even if they got married even if the second brother got married before the divorce, still it's not second brother, got married before the divorce, and there's still ervah there. Still, it's patur, and it goes without saying that if that brother A, got divorced before brother B married his sister-in-law, then for sure there's no tzara of the ervah, and she needs yibum. Okay, fine. And if they're able to do miyun, right? So we said if a girl is able to do miyun, meaning again, like we said yesterday, she got married, she lost her father, and then under 12, her brother and or mother married her off. So she has the right of refusal up until she's 12. So the question is, she has the right to refuse the husband up until 12. But what happens if she decides to refuse the husband after he dies? Meaning, can she still refuse the husband when there's a case of yibum here? She can say, hey, I didn't want this marriage in the first place. And then she nullifies the whole thing, right? So we said yes. So the child is, when is this miyun? But Timon hashta. So then the Gemara says, why don't you just annul the marriage? Let her just annul it. V'tis yavim. Meaning, we're saying that since she has the ability to do miyun, so then the tzara doesn't get yibum. So tell her to nullify the marriage, and now the tzara is a regular sister-in-law, and she should get yibum, and then there's no shaila. So let's say it's a proof to Rabbi Yashia. You can only do miyun up to maimer. Maimer, again, like you said yesterday, maimer would be, here it doesn't really mean maimer. Maimer here doesn't mean maimer for yibum. It's lavdaf, but maimer here could be just up to kedusha, right? So she's allowed to do miyun until there's the yibum situation. But once there's zika, once she is mechuyev to marry, meaning zika is where she's connected to her brother-in-law, once that happens, then she's not allowed to do miyun anymore, which would then explain our Mishna why the tzara is going to be patur, because there's no miyun. You can't do miyun anymore. So the Gemara says, no, that's not the case. Tzaras, ervah, shani, the tzara of an ervah is different. Like we said yesterday, because when you have a tzara of an ervah, there she can't just do miyun whenever she wants, because then it's going to look like she's marrying her father potentially, right? Or her brother-in-law, whoever, could look like she's marrying an ervah even though it would be legal, but since everybody looked at her like she's married to her uncle, and then they're saying, oh no, she's not married to her uncle, so now she could marry, theoretically, the Tzara could marry her father. Obviously, she can't marry her father, but the Tzara could marry her father. So then everybody looks at it like it's a big mess. So when there's a Tzara of ervah going on, so we don't just allow the miyun. The Tani Rami Bar Yecheskel, miyun of a baal, mutaras la'aviv. If she did miyun to her husband, she could be mutter to her father, right? Not obviously
his father.
What? Sorry, his father, not her father, to his father, right? She could become mutter to her father-in-law. Like in a regular case, right? A girl gets married off by her brothers and her mother, right? And she's married to this guy, and then she says, you know what? I like this guy's father more than I like him. So she does miyun to the son, annuls the marriage, and now she can marry the father. But we're not going to allow that because it doesn't look very good, right? Miyun of the yibum, but if she does miyun for the yibum, assur la'aviv, and she's also to the father. Right when she falls to yibum, she already looks like a daughter-in-law. Here, just using this as an example, she looks like the tzara of his daughter, and therefore there is a issa derabanan to do miyun once you get to these cases. Okay. I hope that was semi-understandable. If it wasn't, what should I tell you? I don't know. I meant it for myself. But yeah. And if I think I understood it now, just if I look at it in an hour, it's like I have no idea what's going on here. So whatever. But anyways, okay. Now it seems like we're done at least for the most part for the tzaros. Yeah. So now we still do a little bit of yibum, and then we get into a couple of 3 blocks worth of lysis gaidu of how do we paskin when there's different machlokes, which is quite an interesting sugya and how it's negeya to bisman hazeh. But we have to get to that point. Anyway, so Zok the Mishna. Sheish arayos chamuras me'elu. There are 6 arayos. So again, the first Mishnah had 15 arayos. If the Olam remembers, Levi wanted to add on a 16th, and I forgot who wanted to add it on a 17th, right? But the Mishnah says there's 15 arayos that the co-wife is going to end up being patur from yibum because one of the wives is not allowed to have yibum done to her. So then the patur is all the wives, right? That's what we just said. But then there's 6 more arayos. So the Mishnah says chamuras me'elu. They're not any stricter. In dinei arayos, they're the same thing. It's just they're called chamuras me'elu because they're since they're married to other people, there's no way that they can marry the brother from the father, and therefore there would never be a case of yibum, right? Of this tzaros business, right? So again, sheish arayos chamuras me'elu v'nation the suis la'acherim, because they're married to others. So tzarosein with tzaros, and therefore their tzaros are going to be mutter to do yibum because it's never possible that there should be an ervah falling to yibum. So it's imay, so it's the mother, Eishes aviv, the father's wife, achos aviv, the sister of the father, right, the aunt, achosai me aviv, his sister from his father, Eishes achi aviv, the wife of the aunt through marriage, right, the wife of the father's brother, the Eishes achiv me aviv, and the wife of his brother from his father. So all those cases can never have a case of an ervah falling to yibum, because none of those marriages would ever have been allowed in the first place, and therefore the tzara is chayiv in yibum, right? Then we discussed this yesterday. Beis Shamai matir and tzaros la'achim. Beis Shamai disagrees with the whole concept of the first Mishnah. Beis Shamai says that the tzaros have no shaykhs to the wives. Just because one wife cannot get yibum done to her because she's an ervah, doesn't mean the other wife. Why does the other wife go scot-free? There is a mitzvah yibum on the other wife, right? Because there's nothing wrong with her. There's nothing wrong with that relationship, right? Fine. So that's Beis Shamai. Basically Beis Shamai disagrees with this whole concept. But Beis Hillel says it's assur. Now on to Amud Beis. Chaltzu. Now there's 2 more variations of the same machlokes. Again, according to Beis Shamai, if an ervah falls to yibum, her tzara, her co-wife, is chayiv in yibum, right? But let's say chaltzu. Yeah, so let's say they did do chalitza. right? Let's say they didn't have to, but they did chalitza, right? So, well, according to Beis Hillel, they didn't have to. According to Beis Shamai, they did have to. So chalzu, if she did get chalitza, Beis Shamai pasim and a kahuna. Since she really needed chalitza, at least one of these wives needed chalitza. So la halacha she needed chalitza. So if one of them did do chalitza, so she's passed to a kohen, right? But Beis Hillel is going to say no, her chalitza was a waste of time, right? Since she's patur, since the tzara is patur from yibum and chalitza, right? So if somebody walks over to a random lady in the street and she pulls off his shoe and she spits at his shoe, does that mean that means that she had chalitza now and now she can't marry a kohen? No, it's meaningless. It's a meaningless thing, right? So according to Beis Hillel, when a tzara is patur from yibum and they decide to do chalitza anyways, it's very nice they did chalitza. That's not considered chalitza. She could marry a kohen, right? So that's the second way that the Machlokes Beis Shamai Beis Hillel manifests itself. And then the third is nisyamu. Let's say they decide to do yibum, right? So Beis Shamai machshirin, Beis Shamai says it's a kosher marriage, right? Because she did need yibum. Well, Beis Hillel paisen, and Beis Hillel says no. Beis Hillel says it's puzzle, right?
Puzzle for what?
What?
Puzzle for what? If they don't need the yibum, they're totally mutter.
No, for kohen. Let's say afterwards, let's say she becomes an almana. Let's say the yibum happens. There's a din that any woman who has an illicit relationship with a man is possible. Any znus, yes, znus would passel a woman for kahuna, right? Znus is not considered, by the way. Znus is not if a single girl sleeps with a single guy. That's not znus for a kohen. It has to be an illegal relationship, right? Like a guy sleeping with her. Unfortunately, it comes up quite a lot with people that were not there, one either off the derech or were not from, and they slept with a guy. They are not allowed to be with a kohen. They cannot marry a kohen, right? So here too. So here what would be is according to Beis Shamai, since she does need yibum, if they do yibum and then the next husband dies, she's allowed to marry a kohen just like any almana. But according to Beis Hillel says they're not allowed to do yibum. It's a sister-in-law who you're not allowed to marry. If you have a patur, you're not allowed to marry her. If you marry her, then you did an assur, she did an assur, and she's no longer eligible to be married to a kohen. So those are the three ways. It's all the same. The Gemara is going to say that why do we need to teach us machlokes in three different ways? It's all the same thing. That according to Beis Shamai, she needs regular standard yibum. According to Beis Hillel, she does not need yibum, right? So then now here in the next line we get into the major sugi here that avabisha elu assur v'elu matira, and even though Beis Shamai assurs and Beis Hillel maters elu poison v'elu machshirin, and they passel or they machshir, meaning it's a machlokes like nimnu Beis Shamai milisa nashim Beis Hillel, but Beis Hillel mean Beis Shamai. Beis Shamai married off their daughters to Beis Hillel, and Beis Hillel married off to Beis Shamai. And not only that, but kol tzaros v'tameya shahayu elu matar v'elu matamen. They also had machlokes in tum and tahara, and whichever ones, usually Beis Shamai is the one that's matama, and Beis Hillel is the one that's matar. Lo nimnu ha'isen tzaros elu al gabi elu. They did not stop themselves from borrowing utensils from each other. Which the Gemara is going to ask in tomorrow's daf. What exactly does this mean? Right? Can it be that Beis Shamai is, according to them, is a mamzer, and they're going to marry their kids off to a mamzer, right? Or Beis Hillel, can that actually be? Or is it that they just trusted each other, where Beis Shamai married their kids off to Beis Hillel, but when there was a shaila, like, hey, stay away from this shidduch, because according to you, it's a mamzer. According to us, it's perfectly fine, right? So that's the Gemara's maskana is going to be that's the way it went down. That they trusted each other. Now, what that says for the climate nowadays, where if you have a machlokes, then you take that machlokes through and through, right? That's clearly not the way the machlokes Beis Shamai Beis Hillel was. It was just a machlokes in philosophy. That doesn't mean that the other one is a rat and a jerk and a whatever and the lowest human being, whatever else happens by our machlokes. Yeah.
Even with that, why doesn't that make us all Suffolk Mamzerim today?
Speak for yourself. I don't know.
No, yeah, okay, I am.
Ravar, you're muted. Yes.
I am, but
If you like that, you could do it, Cash, and it's fine for you. It's fine.
Shkoyach, I'm glad I'm the only one here who's worried about it, but
Okay, good, good, fine. You
A
know,
lot it's gonna help you to
So,
worry
Gershon,
about.
what are you looking for a head to what? Not to have more kids because they might be Suffolk Mamzerim? Go ahead, ask the rabbi.
Gershon,
No,
don't worry.
because-
I'll still eat the object. Don't worry.
Can I finish the Shaila? Is that okay
Go
with
ahead,
anyone?
go ahead. Finish it off. Finish the Shaila.
At some point, no one paskin like Beis Shamai anymore. At that point, presumably, 3 generations later, no one warned anyone of what was what.
Okay, so
So
what
because the warnings stopped, and now we don't know who Beis Shamai Beis Hillel were, presumably we make shidduchim into each other without
Correct.
warnings.
1 second. But if we're saying that we pass on like Beis Hillel, so what do we care what Beis Shammai held?
Because Beis Shammai did hold like that. So if they did have these cases, then there will
So
be
you're saying-
mamzerim in the world.
So you're saying that if you were from Beis Shammai, you might have an issue.
No, even from Beis Hillel.
Why?
Because whoever you are, you now marry into what was Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai
Right.
doesn't exist anymore, 3 generations later, or whatever, 10 generations
Right.
later. But for those 10 generations, they made what Beis Hillel would call mamzer.
Correct.
And that was mutter for them. There was no issue,
Right.
because they stayed in Beis Shammai.
Right.
Now we don't have Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, so we don't have the warnings, we don't have anything. So presumably, shidduchim happened between families that used to be Beis Hillel and used to be Beis Shammai, which
Fair
would
enough.
make everyone a Suffolk mamzer.
Who's a Beis Shamai family? I don't understand. Nobody passes like Beis Shamai.
Is this so hard to understand? I'm not.
No, but he's saying
First of all, nobody does yibum. I don't understand. There's no shaila. Everyone does chalitza now.
What okay, if there was one case of yibum that resulted in children, the Shas Beis Shammai asking like Shammai,
But they didn't
then
mix.
You'd
you're
have an
saying
issue.
theoretically, yeah, you're saying theoretically then there could be a case of mamzera slipping in. I hear what
in
you're
all
saying.
Klal Yisrael today.
All right.
Wait a minute, but you have 1,000 families and there's one suffix of mamzeris. That makes everybody a mamzer.
It's not Suffolk, it's Vadai. If
What
it
is
It's a
happens,
suffix because we don't know.
It's Vada and that one family, but you have 1,000 families that didn't marry into Beis Shamai.
Yeah, but
It's
which is
restricted,
he's
it's
saying that
restricted
what's
to
the
the Ohio
chances?
region.
the chances are quite high. That's the way
No, it's
genealogy
not.
works.
No, it's Gershon. It's not because if there's
Do a
1,000
genealogy
families,
graph. Do a genealogy graph. It works every time. There's only
I don't
so
know
many
what-
grandparents and great grandparents you have. It works as a pyramid. It's got to split somewhere.
So,
Yaakov, I think we gotta get
tell you
Gershon to
one
New York
thing is
more
for
often.
sure is that we're not done the daf yet. That's a vadai.
Okay, the mashgiach is talking. We'll wait till we get to the end of the sugya, Gershon, and then we'll everybody save all their pot shots for Gershon for tomorrow or the next day, and then okay, fine. Well, the mashgiach spoke, so we got to go back. So Zog the Gemara, yeah.
Who's the mashgiach?
Parents is the
Who's the
mashgiach.
The man who's
That's
about
all
to
I'm
mute
asking.
you.
So Zog the Gemara, Somer of Shimon Pazi. My time at the Beis Shamai. Why does Beis Shamai hold that it's mutter, that the Tzara needs yibum? Right? The pasuk says that the Eishes Hames should not be outside to an Ishzar, meaning that's the pasuk that tells you that the brother's wife who died, I'm saying the brother who died's wife, right, she should not go marry somebody strange, right? She should marry somebody on the inside, meaning her brother-in-law. Mechlal deika pnimis. It says chutza, mechlal deika pnimis. When it says that there's somebody on the outside, that means there has to be somebody on the inside. So that means there has to be a brother on the inside and the outside. And the Torah says it shouldn't be. So you see that there's a brother on the inside who she can't marry, but then there's a brother from the outside that she could marry who's not related. Maybe because she's not related to him. So that's what Beis Shamai says. So remember we said yesterday or 2 days ago that Kiddushin, if a man marries a woman, that's an Isser Chorus, then the Kiddushin doesn't even work, right? A guy goes over to his sister and decides to marry her, it's meaningless, right? But if for Isser Lav, if something that's an Isser Lav, and they get married, then the Kiddushin works. So Yevama is an Isser Lav, it's not Isser Chorus, meaning a brother, right? For a Yevama to go marry somebody else, a stranger. She's supposed to marry her brother-in-law. If she doesn't, she marries a strange man. So what's her din? So it's a lav. So l'chayra the marriage should work. B'diavad. So Amar Yudam Aram Minayin she'ein kiddushin toisim b'yevama. How do you know the kiddushin does not work by yevama? Shenemer lo'siya isha samesa chutza le'ish zar. Lo'siya ba havaya l'zar. There should be no kiddushin for a zar, even though normally kiddushin should work because it's only a lav. But here it doesn't work. So how's Beis Shamai going to learn this? Miksiv l'chutz. Does it say the outside? Chutza. It says chutza, which means the one that's from the outside. So yes, he's not learning from this pasuk. Since it says chutza, it's as if it says l'chutz. And this is Rashi brings this down many, many times in Chumash. Titania, Reb Nechemia Omer, Kol Teva shetzricha lamed b'tchilasa hitullah hakasav hey b'seifa. Anytime any word that needs a lamed in the front, so sometimes the Torah, instead of putting a lamed in front of it, will just put a hey at the end. The Tanad Rebbe Shmuel kegoin olim or elim, to elima, meaning instead of saying li elim to elim, it says elima. Machanayim, instead of saying li machanayim, it says machanima. Right? It's Mitzrayim is Mitzrayim. Tivlasaima, Yerushalayim, Midbara. Right, so all the hey at the end replaces the lamed in the beginning. For all the Baalei Machshava out there, I don't know what the pshat is. I'm sure there's plenty of vertelach out there. How the lamed gets changed to a hey at the end. Ich weiß nicht. Either way, that's the way he's touching the word chutza. How does Beis Shamai know this din of Reb Yehuda Marav that if a strange man marries the Yevama, that the Kedushin doesn't work? So Mila Ishzar Nafki learns it out from Ishzar. Right? Why does Beis Hillel also learn out from Ishzar? And Ochanami, Chutza, he says he could. So then Chutza Lamali. So then why do you need the word Chutza? The Rabbi Zarusa, that comes to include that even if a woman is only engaged to the brother-in-law, even if the woman's just engaged, the brother-in-law still has to do yibum. I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily just from Kiddushin, it could even be from engagement. And the other one is going to learn it out from the word chutza, and then it says ha-chutza. And the other one, chutza, he's not mashma. Fine. Now we get into one of the most yeshivish, I guess, for lack of a better word, sugyas and shas. I mean, this is not the main place, but right. Rava Omar Tamayu to Beis Shamai. Why does Beis Shamai say that the tzara is patur? The tzara gets yibum. The Tamayu to Beis Shamai the ein isur chal al isur. One isur can't be chal on another isur. Right, meaning when a woman gets married, so her brothers-in-law will become assur to her. That's already one isur, right? Now, let's say another brother of her husband marries her sister, so that's two brothers marrying two sisters. So that is an additional isur here. She's assur because she is a sister-in-law, and she's also her wife, her sister's wife. She's married. How do you say it? I should know if I clear already by now. We had this example about 100 times, right? She's also twice because she's also to her because it's a brother-in-law, and it's also the wife's sister. So Mamela, there's two isur, but that second isur is ein isur chalal isur, meaning your standard case of a brother-in-law marrying a sister-in-law when there's no kids. That's a mitzvah that the Torah tells you. So that's doicha that mitzvah. Where there's an additional isur of ervah, right? Let's say it's a father that has to be miyam his daughter, or a brother that has to be who has to be miyam his wife's sister. So since it's an additional isur ervah, right? So they can't be done. You can't do yibum, right? So, but Beis Shamai says the tzara can because ein isur chalal isur. She was already also for one thing. We can't add on another. Right, so that's the way Rava understands Beis Shamai. Yeah. So So Tinach, so the Gemara asks Tinach, Heicha de Nasa Meis V'achakach Nasa Chai. So that's good. Where again we're going to go in the order of exactly how it went down. That's if the one who died got married first, and then, meaning let's talk about two brothers marrying two sisters. So the one that died, he married sister A first, and then Achakach Nasa Chai, and then the brother that's living then got married. So then loy osi isra achos isha v'chal isra ishasach. So then the isser of the sister's wife is not going to be chal on the isser of the wife of the brother. But if a chai got married, the one that was alive got married first, and then the one who died got married. Achos isha kodem. So the isser of achos isha came first. So since achos isha came first, so then it's that isser was there before. And that's the only reason why that they're also. So what his answer is no, keeping the loyalty isra eishes ach b'chayil isra eishes isha, since the isra of eishes ach cannot come and be chal on the isra achos isha, because again, the wife's sister was first, havile tzaros ervah shaloyim makam mitzvah. So then it's a tzaros ervah shaloyim makam mitzvah because he was not allowed to marry his wife's sister. So v'shariya, so therefore it's mutter, so that's why it's going to be matter the whole thing. Fine. So then chaltzu Beis Shamai paisen. So if they did chalitza, Beis Shamai is going to say puzzle to the kahuna. Why is she puzzled to the kahuna? Because she needed chalitza. So it says pshita, it's pashit. So lafuki the Rav Yochanan ben Nuri, Damar bayu when niskan lahem tzaros you chaltzas lahem yavas. It's because Rav Yochanan ben Nuri said, Rav Yochanan ben Nuri was a peace man. He had a machlokes with Beis Shamai whether these women needed yibum or chalitza. Rav Yochanan ben Nuri said, why don't we just give them all chalitza, and then it's fine according to everybody. The only issue is that they won't be able to marry kehanim according to Beis Hillel, right? According to Beis Shamai. But so what? It's still better. But that tikkun never happened. So you would think maybe we should go like that. Kamashma the Beis Hillel machshirin. No, Beis Hillel says that they're kosher, right? So therefore she's allowed to be, because according to Beis Hillel the chalitza is meaningless. So therefore they're mutter to be a kehanim. Fine. The third case was Nisyama Beis Hillel Paisen. If they did yibum, Beis Hillel says they're puzzle because the yibum could have worked, and according to Beis Shamai, they're not puzzle because that's a regular standard marriage. So then hasu lamali, right? What do you need that case for? I did on a chalitza, on an nisyama. Since it said chalitza, so we're also going to say nisyama. Fine. End of sugya for that. For all those that are having a hard time, or that means all of us. Now we can start fresh from this sugya. We'll just start it a little bit now, just to get our feet wet, because this sugya lasts us another 3 blocks. And it's all about, can we paskin different ways, or is it loisiskai to do? What we call loisiskai to do, showing that there's different places paskening different ways. An extremely difficult concept to figure out bisman hazeh, because bisman hazeh, where we are, everybody does whatever they want. There's no minhag hamakam anymore. Right, minhag hamakam used to be something extremely important, and you couldn't go neged minhag hamakam. And nowadays in America, and I think even in Eretz Yisrael, maybe less so in Eretz Yisrael, but it's a melting pot. So everybody does whatever they want, but that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Like tefillin cholamoid.
Tefillin cholamoid is actually the last vestige of people doing things like that. Right? Meaning tefillin cholamoid, I mean, the white shul, they allow you to have the tefillin, everybody davened in the same minyan, but most other places, the tefillin guys got to go up to the ladies section or go someplace else. Right? Most places don't allow it. So that actually is an example of where we did separate. But you're right, in Eretz Yisrael, nobody would be caught putting on tefillin anywhere in public on cholamoid. So it is a little, in a way, we do it, at least we separate it, but not mamish like they would in Eretz Yisrael. Right? So let's see. So Tanan Hasan, we learned over there.
But I think I remember reading an article recently that David Feinstein used to put on tefillin on cholamoid. You heard such a thing?
Why can't he? Why is that so schwer?
No, I'm saying you would think that didn't most gedolim not wear tefillin cholamoid?
It depends where they came from. Right?
I'm
Depends on
sorry, I
where
made a
we-
mistake. That one of the brothers did and one of the brothers didn't. I'm sorry, that's what I read. Stop
Oh
interesting.
yeah, that I don't know. That I don't know.
That's
Don't
what
believe everything. Don't believe everything you read.
Okay.
What about believing everything you hear?
You can't believe that either.
Okay. Okay. So let's just start the sugi. So Tanan Hassam. Yeah, Megillah Nikra is Be'achar Assur, Shneim Assur, Shloish Assur, Arba Assur, Chamisha Assur. Right? Loipachas, I hope this reminds us back of the easy days of Gemara. Right? Loipachas v'layayisa, you can't read it before the 11th and not after the 15th. Amalei Rashagash Rabbi Yochanan, Ikri kan loisis kaidedu. Right? When we say here the pasuk of loisis kaidedu, which means loisasu agudus, don't
So
make
Yaakov,
different groups. Yeah.
this is perfect. So half the Olam says Tachn in those days, and half the Olam doesn't say Tachn in those days.
That's just salt in the wounds, right? That's just salt in the wounds. Yes, yeah, yeah. But actually, I davened in Sulitz on Tainus Esther morning. It was gewaldig. No Avinu Malkeinu, no Tachnon. Half the davening was cut out. I didn't even expect it. It was like a cherry on top. Anyway, so yeah, so don't make it into different groups. And how are you not making it into different groups if you got some keeping it Purim on the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th?
What's
Right.
like a Purim itself is split into two groups.
Correct. Same thing. 100%. Right. That's sort of what it's asking. That's what it's asking. So anything about a source says, don't we need the pasuk for itself? Really, what Lysiskaidu means that when it's Mamish Negei today to the Chaim Kanievsky, right? Don't not to him specifically, but don't make a machabura, because people, they would cut themselves, right? They would cut themselves after Tzara happened. So that's what the real explanation of the pasuk is. So don't we need it for that?
Make a chabura?
What?
Meaning, don't jump over the kfarim just in case you make a chabura.
Well, I think this means more to do it on purpose, but maybe I could hear that as an extension, right? So then the Gemara says, don't you need it for that? Not to teach you that we can't have different groups doing different things. So when it answers, my loisis gaidedu, shma mina lahachi hudasa, that it's coming to tell us that not to make different groups. Okay, so then maybe the whole pasuk is coming to tell us not to make different groups doing different halachas, and it's not coming to teach you that you're not allowed to make yourself have a chabura on the dead. So the answers in Kain Lemakra loisis gaidu. My loisis gaidedu. Do not ask me what this means all in the world of diktuk. I have no idea. Right? Shmami no tarti. So that's coming to tell us two things. It's coming to tell us not to make a chabura, and it's coming to tell us that not to make different groups. So I want to say, asks, by Erev Pesach, we know Erev Pesach after Chatzos is Isser Malacha. That's according to everybody, that's the halacha, because that's when they brought the covering Pesach. But what about an Isser Malacha from the morning? So some places have the minig, some places don't have the minig. So Amrleh, so he said, Pastor, he's saying, how can you have that? Amrleh, Amina Lachana Isura. I'm talking to you about Isurim, meaning when it's mutter and also to read the Megillah. Damar Rav Shama Barava, Amar Rav Yochanan L'Kaimis, you may have Purim Bismaneihem. It says, the pasuk says to be Mekayim Purim in their proper times. Manim Harbe, Tiknulem, Chacham, the Chacham gave them many different times to read the Megillah. But Amrli Min Haga. And you're telling me that you're bringing me a raya from Minik, right? So then the Gemara answers, "V'hasam lavi surah havai." But was it not a isser, right? V'atanan b'layla Beis Shamai osim b'silam matirin. There's also isser by Erev Pesach. So Amarlei hasam haroya aimer melachu u'delaslei. There's no problem of not working. Whenever you have this comes up on Tisha B'av too, there's no isser of gaiva and or looking like two different groups doing two different keeping different halachas when it comes to not doing malacha. Because let's say a guy has a day off from work, or he has no business that day. So what are you going to say? The guy, he's purposely not doing work today? You can say, no, he has no work, or he's in kailo, right? And you can say he's in kailo. So then why he's not doing any work anyways? So that's why there's no agudas when somebody doesn't do work. So what it says about Beis Shamai Matir Hatzaros la'achim v'sil oisim. Right back to our Gemara. We have Beis Shamai, like Gershon was saying. Beis Shamai is being matam mamzerim. Beis Hillel is saying that they're assur, or vice versa, depending on the case, right? So how can you have Beis Shamai Beis Hillel making such distinct pshatim? So Gemara says, "Misav." Now here's where the real sugya starts. Misavras also Beis Shamai k'divrayim. Do you think that Beis Shamai did the way they paskin? Lo also Beis Shamai k'divrayim. Beis Shamai did not do like they said. So basically, what the Gemara is answering here is that Beis Shamai, it was just a, how do you say it? A exercise in
halachic discourse.
Right, so something like that, right? It was an exercise. Yeah, there's an English way of saying it, right? It was an exercise in using your brain. What was it called?
Mental exercise.
Yeah, it's like mental exercise. Beis Shamai is disagreeing with Beis Hillel theoretically, but Lamaisa, Beis Shamai is going to go like Beis Hillel, which is a wild thing to say, right? So therefore, even though Beis Shamai, half the Mishnayos are Machlokes Beis Shamai Beis Hillel, we're saying no. Beis Shamai never ever did differently than Beis Hillel, because we paskin like Beis Hillel, and therefore it doesn't look like we're doing different things, right? Over Rabbi Yochanan Amar assur v'assur. Rabbi Yochanan disagrees. He says they.
So I'm
did
just
it.
saying. So Gershon's whole kasha would be nothing then.
Correct. If you go with that sheet, the 100%. Right. That's why
Isn't there a whole
that's
story?
why we pushed them off till tomorrow. Right. That's
Isn't there a whole?
how we got out of it.
Isn't there a
What
whole
you saying,
story where
Nicole?
someone paskin one way and we paskin that way, and he made him bring his, he made him come to him in Yom Kippur. He didn't know what to do. He didn't want to,
Yes,
and he ended up doing it. But it,
Yes. So that also gets into the whole sugya, because that gets into Basko, which is really the next line. So Rabbi Yochanan Amar assur v'assur. They did it. They paskin differently, and they did it. To be plugged to the Rava Shmuel. The Rava Amar lo assur Beis Shamai k'divrayim. Beis Shamai did not do like their words. Shmuel Amar assur v'assur. They did. So now instead of trying to fix a machlokes, now we just made the machlokes even deeper, because now we have a machlokes Rav and Shmuel whether Beis Shamai did like Beis Hillel or not, right? Okay, so that will stop over here, and then the Gemara goes on.
Before we hang up, 1 second, everybody. Whoever knows, I just got a text, Moshe Hal, and whoever knows Moshe, he's sitting Shiva one day in Far Rockaway, 8:23 Mihan. Shachris tomorrow is 7:30. 8:23.
He's sitting, and then where's he going? It's over.
He's finishing. He just came back from Detroit and from Eretz Yisrael. Yeah.
I hear. Okay. What
It's
time?
Yaakov.
He's getting up tomorrow morning.
Okay. Fine. Sudas Toivus. Yeah.
It's Yaakov. Shiloh, there's this whole idea that you could do kimli. How does a person ever do kimli with license going to do?
How do you do kimli b'loisis? See, there it's more in a choshen mishpat thing, no?
Who cares? The yisurim always come out of kimli, choshen mishpat. If I say kimli, but with this halacha, and now I'm stealing from you, there's yisurim that come out of that.
What's kimli?
What?
Can you do
What is
kimli?
that? What's kimli?
Can you do kimli to keep something?
Kimli can say.
Can I grab something?
Two people fight. Basically, kimli is when you have two people fighting over something. So one side could say kimli, I go with this shita, whatever it is, shita A, B, C, whatever it is, and therefore I will either want to pay or want to get paid, etc., etc. See, but there I think it's different.
There's gzela going on.
It could be.
So that's not an issur? There's always in choshen mishpat, if you're kimli, you always are stepping on the inyanim of isurim as well.
Kimli's a taina. We're not talking about two different people.
The choshen mishpat ties into issur always. If you're trying to take something from somebody else.
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I would think that that's not something so in the open like that, like keeping Megillah on a different day or keep doing the Isser Malach on Pesach on a different day. It's just like it's a highly individualized case, right? That's not in the public.
Is license going to do the idea of public, or is it just the idea that people can't be doing things differently than other people? Why does it have to be? Why does it have to be a din b'farasya? Here it's because shaval tasa, people don't know. But here, if if I publicly say Kimli and I'm going against somebody else and I'm basically keeping the law a certain way in order so I can keep my mom in, who cares if it's only one person? You very clearly are going with a different shita.
That's true. That's true.
In the Gemara's case, Pesach and not working, nobody knows what you're doing because you're not saying what you're doing.
Right.
Here, you're stating. You have to state explicitly that I'm going with a certain shita.
Okay, but again, I don't know enough Choshen Mishpat to understand how that works. But I would think that it's not like if a whole town decides and says, okay, Kimli, we're going to go with this and this shita, and then the neighboring town says, Kimli, that we're going to go with this and this shita, then that doesn't work. That's agudus. But if one time the guy says Kimli, so therefore I want you to pay me, etc., then maybe. I don't know. That's what I would think, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Rabbi, is there ever a time where you don't give a heter for birth control? Meaning, even according to Rashi or Tosfos, if it's like you said, it's just you're tricking the brain into thinking that the body's pregnant. Like, why is there ever an issue with taking birth control, even before a person was?
Because you have a mitzvah. You have two mitzvahs. You have a mitzvah pruruvu, and even after you mekayim pruruvu, you have a mitzvah d'Rabbanan of the Shavas Tzara. So you have
What's
a
that
mitzvah
second one?
d'Rabbanan.
What's the D'Rabbanan? What does that mean?
There's two psukim. L'shavas Tzara, which is to settle the world, to make sure that the world has more people. And what's the other pasuk? Al tanach le'erev, al tanach yadecha. Right, in the evening, don't rest. So that's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. There is no clarity with how many kids you get defined as the d'Rabbanan, but that's what it is. But yes, the heterim, and that's Tamash Shaila. Is there a chiyuv's reason or not? Right? It's not like It's not like we're going on birth control. Newlyweds going on birth control. It's not like this saying I'm not having kids. It's just saying, we'll wait 6 months or a year. Right? So the question is, do you say Zrizah Makdim or do you not say Zrizah Makdim? Are we choshesh for death? Are we not choshesh for death?
But still, like, what's the problem with taking a pill that makes your body think that it's pregnant? If I understand there's a mitzvah
you're preventing doing the mitzvah d'oraisa of pruruvu.
But it's not. You're not doing anything biyadayim, right? It's not what Rashi or
So the
Tosfos
whole
are
thing is
talking
the
about
grama.
here.
The whole thing is a grama, but then using a moich is also just a grama.
It's a bit more closer to stopping it than a grama that birth controls. No, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay, but these are the contemporary issues. This is why it becomes such a hot button topic nowadays.
Got it. So the reason today to assur birth control is because it is a grama and there is a mitzvah of l'shavas Tzara and pruruvu, even just on a d'Rabbanan, even if someone already had kids.
Yes. Yeah. So then you have to weigh each situation differently. You know what I mean? Somebody who has a lot of anxiety, right? So then maybe she's patur from the d'Rabbanan. But that's the joke of the whole thing. The woman doesn't even get the mitzvah. She knows no chiyuv. Right?
Right.
So it's not a joke, whatever. That's the funny part of the whole thing.
But let's say a newly married couple. Is it a bigger shiloh because now it's a deraisa?
Yeah, it's a much bigger shiloh. I could tell you like this. All the big poskim, who everybody would ask all their pikuach nefesh shilohs to, are not matir newlyweds to use birth control. It's all the rabbanim that you wouldn't ask your pikuach nefesh shilohs to, are the ones that are matir for the newlyweds. What should I tell you? That's just the way it is. Now, we're being recorded, right? That's wonderful. But that's yeah.
Rav David Cohen isn't matir birth control for newlyweds?
No, not anymore. And why you? Why don't I just hit the record? Hold on a second.